but we're starting to see where long form content is back. Long form content, I always like to say, is queen. Uh, and it's coming back in that this is how people are finding information and searching.
Hi, I'm Tori Mystic, and you're listening to the Wear, Wag, Repeat podcast, the only show dedicated to supporting women in all areas of the pet industry. If you've been listening to this podcast lately, then you know how important it is to blog for your pet business. But does it still feel a little bit overwhelming? Sometimes too much information is not a good thing. That is why I think you are going to love today's expert interview with Jessica Shipman, the accomplished COO and CMO of BlogPaws. Jessica and I explored some exciting trends and tactics that every petpreneur will find useful when it comes to keeping their blog organized and efficient. Personally, we are both very excited about the shift back to long-form content. Obviously, social media isn't going anywhere. Jessica shares some great advice on how to adapt your blogging and social media strategy so that they can work together for today's algorithms. We also cover the top 3 SEO essentials that you need to focus on when creating new blog posts. I promise you it's not overwhelming. Just listen and give it a chance. Then we talk about how to create a content catalog and track your blog's performance using a tool such as Airtable. That's Jessica's personal fave, and I think I'm going to start with just a simple Google spreadsheet to keep track of my blog posts. I'm really inspired to take action on this one. Then we talk about what a content brief is and how it can streamline your writing process, making your posts more effective and focused. And then finally, we covered the all-important Google EAT, or is it EAT? That's EEAT, and it stands for Experience, Expertise, Authority, and Trust. These are Google's guidelines, and Jessica outlines how to apply them to your own blog posts so that you can build trust with your audience and also build trust with Google. This interview is packed with practical tips that will help elevate your pet business blog. This is part 3 of my blogging series here on the Wear, Wag, Repeat podcast. You might have noticed that all of Q3 is dedicated to blogging here on the podcast, in Wear, Wag, Repeat Society, in blog posts I'm writing on my own site, and also in the September blogging challenge that I am hosting this month, which my members doing that challenge have already written 17 blog posts. The goal for the entire group for this month is 97. So I can't wait to see us reach that goal. If you missed any of the previous interviews in this blogging series, you can go back and listen to episode 323 with Pamela Keniston or episode 326 with Caitlin Brown. One last thing to mention about today's episode, Jessica shares exciting news about the upcoming BlogPaws Live event in Boulder, Colorado. This is an in-person event where you will get to meet and mingle with fellow pet content creators and professionals. And guess what? I am going to be speaking on an expert panel about diversifying your income as a pet content creator. I am so excited to get back together with the gang, and I would love for you to join us. So if you do want to come in person to BlogPaws Live this November 15th and 16th, check out the episode description for a unique link and a code. You're going to want to use code TORI30 to get $30 off your registration. It's not an affiliate link or anything. It's just a discount for you. So check that link out in the description, and please join us for BlogPaws Live. There's going to be 100 pet content creators there. That's what Jessica told me. So I am really excited to be there in person with everyone. Now, I can't wait to hit play on this episode. It is packed with strategies that are going to transform your pet blogging game. So without further ado, let's do it. Jessica Shipman, COO and CMO of BlogPaws, is an accomplished business owner and content creator with over 11 years of pet industry expertise. You will find blogging, SEO, social media, web development, photography, brand partnerships, event planning, and even more on her resume. If it's related to running an online pet business, Jessica has done it. Jessica has successfully founded and co founded multiple pet focused businesses, including her first blog, Beagles and Bargains, which still brings in steady traffic thanks to SEO, and All Pet Voices, a pet media company that was sold in 2021. When she's not helping pet focused content creators grow their reach and business in the free BlogPaws community, she's either trying to outsmart Google, cracking a bad joke, or hanging out with her two dogs, Ralph and Luna, and community cat, Chadwick. Hey, Jessica.
Hey, Tori, how are you?
I can totally relate to this outsmarting Google hobby.
Yes.
That's my biggest hobby at the moment too.
Yes, you have to be super clever to do it, and you don't really ever feel like you're winning, but it's a great time.
Yeah, it's a worthy opponent or whatever, I guess, if we were like in some sort of battle.
Yes, very worthy.
So let's dive straight into it. In the intro, before your bio, I kind of talked about other places that people can find you. So we're just going to dive right into blogging and content creation and SEO today. So you've been a part of the BlogPaws community for a long time. Before you were even on the staff, you were heavily involved in BlogPaws, and you've been focused for years on helping pet content creators and petpreneurs and pet influencers grow their reach. So, based on all that experience and working in the trenches here, what are some key trends or maybe changes in the blogging landscape that we need to be aware of?
Yeah, so I mean, this is going back again to 11 or so years ago when I first came onto the scene. The word blogging was often associated with almost an online diary, right? Like what I did today, here are pictures of my pets. And that's actually how I came into the space. But then over the years, it shifted to be more educational, informational, SEO driven because people weren't, going to your domain. They're not typing in blogpods.com anymore. They're searching something, and then hopefully our content is appearing in those search results and bringing people in. But then we also went through a period where social media kind of took over, and everyone was, doing the latest TikTok dance or trending reel. And we're still in this space a little bit, but we're starting to see where long form content is back. Long form content, I always like to say, is queen. Uh, and it's coming back in that this is how people are finding information and searching. And it's interesting because obviously you and I, we have our background in blogging, and I absolutely love blogging, but there's ways to incorporate that same tactic on social media because people are using social media platforms for search. And so there's a lot of interesting things popping up with using what we've learned to be visible on Google to become visible on Instagram or TikTok. And still, I'm still a proponent of having a blog, having your own website, so that way you own all that information, but leveraging that across multiple platforms.
Yeah, I like how you point out that you can use what you learn about blogging and the blogging sort of toolkit that you have and apply that to social media. Because I always kind of forget about that, I guess, myself. I'm like, social media content's totally different than blogging content. But you're right. Everything is a search engine these days.
Yes, and especially with the younger generation, so Gen Z, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but it's a very large percentage of how many of them utilize like TikTok for their questions, like where they go to find their answers. And so if you are a business or blog who is wanting to target younger generations and just, build longevity of your business, that's something that you might want to keep in mind.
Yeah. And so it really kind of comes down to being smart about like the keywords that you're using, like even in the captions or the closed captions, the
Yes.
subtitles of your videos, making sure that you have the right keywords in those, even on social media videos.
Yep. And so we often associate SEO with web search and Google. But like we just talked about, a lot of those practices come into play with the captions, with what people are reading on social media as well.
Yeah. So people are still reading stuff. Oh, so quaint.
So cute of them. Yes.
So modest, so demure.
Yes. Yes.
So that is for anyone who is not aware, that is a social media trend at the moment. It is just using the word demure. So let's kind of switch gears from being demure and talk about SEO. So, um, you know, SEO, it means search engine optimization. So all of our social media platforms are really search engines now. Google, Bing, Yahoo. I mean, there's tons of search engines out there. So for people with limited time and resources, because, we all have our own pet businesses, we're trying to do 8 million things. What are kind of the most important SEO things that we should be thinking about, especially when it comes to creating new content? And let's stick with blog posts for now, just because social media is a whole other can of worms. But so when someone's creating a new blog post, what are kind of the most important SEO things to think about?
Well, I think number one is creating content. That's something that there's so many ways to optimize this process with keyword research, with, making sure that we get content out on a timely basis. And all of that is important. But if that prevents us from creating content, then we're never going to rank. We're never going to show up in the search results. So at the end of the day, even if you have a post that maybe you should have posted a month ago to really maximize, don't, necessarily not post that, right? Like, keep in mind all the factors that you have in front of you, but get content out. Again, coming back to my favorite saying, which is content is queen, because if you aren't creating, then there's nothing, you're not going to get results, right? So that would be number one. And then I think number two is figuring out what you want to be known for. So what is your expertise? What are the areas that you want people to come asking questions of you on any platform. And then that is going to be what brings those search results to your site. There's various words for it, pillar content, cornerstone content, basically putting different containers around different categories of content within your larger niche. And I could spend, I feel like a whole podcast with you talking about like identifying your niche, and it's going to vary from every site, every brand. But that would be, I think the next step is basically identifying where you want to be known and how you want to be known. And then if you have extra time, if you have a few bucks a month, doing some keyword research would be where I would go next. There's fortunately a lot of tools that make it a little bit easier, and they're not too expensive. And that would be where I would channel my next bit of energy.
I love this. So number one, just publish the damn post.
Yes. Get it out.
Number two is to get really clear on what you want to be known for, which I think is such a smart way of thinking about it. Not like, what do I want to talk about? What do I want to, what do I like? What did I do recently with my dogs? But what do you want to be known for? Where people are like, she's the girl who's great at XYZ. And then number three is to maybe invest in some keyword research, because a lot of unfortunately the free tools have become paid tools. So it's worth investing in something.
Yes. And there are still some tools out there that you can get like a lifetime membership. Google does have Google Search Console, which is still a great tool. If you haven't set up your site on that, definitely do that. But I always recommend, if you have a little bit of budget, go take it to the next step.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, because it will save you a lot of time in just doing the research. So you had mentioned a little like buzzword here, which is content pillars. And I think that's something that can get really confusing for a lot of people. But you, I know, have a really great way to kind of keep track of that. And that's using a content catalog. So can you tell us a little bit about how you build a content catalog, what it is, and how it can benefit people, whether they're a blogger or a petpreneur, to keep track of their posts that they're creating?
Yeah, so this is something that we actually started doing back when I was running All Pet Voices. And at that time, we were building a brand new site. So we had, a fresh slate. But then when I took over the management of the BlogPaws blog, it was a little bit of a different problem because the BlogPaws blog was started around 2009 with tons of different authors, tons of content. And we essentially wanted a way to know everything that existed on the blog. For a wide range of reasons, internal linking to be able to know what we had posted before and could link back to in our new content. Also, what content was maybe weak and we didn't want to keep anymore. So to have essentially an inventory of that. So we invented this tool called a content catalog, which I know other people do it, but the way that we on the BlogPaws team utilize a content catalog, we actually build it through Airtable, which is, if you haven't ever used Airtable and you like spreadsheets, get really, really excited, because Airtable is like spreadsheets on all of the things that could make it better. It's like, unicorns, rainbows, all the butterflies. It allows you to view your data in a bunch of different ways without coding, without, having multiple tabs or anything like that. So it's a really great tool. We build it in there. It's, like I said, essentially a database of your content. So some of the things that we include in our content catalog are, general information, author, topics related, or categories, if you want to call them. But then we also include the pillars. So when we identified what we want to be known for, now in the current state of BlogPaws, we identified several pillars. We have quite a few because we've had such a long lived blog. But within that, it allows us to really understand where we maybe need to create more content, or where we maybe need to create less content. If like we're constantly writing content around SEO, which is probably something we're guilty of because it's one of our favorite topics to talk about. But there are other things that we want to be known for. Like, we have an amazing designer on our team. So branding is one of those pieces. And I'm looking at our content catalog right now, and that's definitely something that, we could use a few more posts in. So I'm going to be writing Christy on our team a little email telling her that we need to get some branding posts up. But this really helps you have a holistic view of the content on your site so that you can make more educated decisions on what you want to write and how you want to update or clean up old posts. And then it also provides you information on where to link to yourself, because we talk about backlinks a lot, but external links are important, but so are internal links, because you're building a web of your own content, of your own expertise in the site that you own.
This was just something I talked about in Where Repeat Society, my membership. It was like low-hanging fruit lesson of, do internal linking, go put in some headings in some posts that don't have them. Just take advantage of the low-hanging fruit, and that's a great way to do that.
Yes. Yeah. And yes, use headings. That's a very important thing too.
Yes. Yes. So Jessica, I've probably known this for a long time, but listening to you talk, you're a very organized person. And you love organization and systems. So another thing that we wanted to talk about on this episode was the concept of a content brief. And before we hit record, I was like, what does that mean exactly? Because I am not as organized. I'm a little bit more chaotic in my approach. And so you told me it's just kind of like an old school outline for like a book report, basically. So like your thesis statement, what is the point of what you're trying to say? Can you tell us a little bit more? Because I'm not explaining it well, but what a content brief is and how we can use those to make our blog posts more effective and more efficient, because that's really, if you're not doing that, then kind of what's the point?
Yeah. So we call it a content brief because we have a couple different writers on our team. And then we also do work with some guest writers. So it is kind of an assignment document. But if you are a solopreneur and it's just you writing, then you can view it definitely as an outline, because that's really what it is. And what we include in there is those keywords that you find that you want to try to hit, because that way they're, in front of your face throughout this whole process. And we include both primary and secondary. And that's especially important if you have a keyword that maybe can be searched in a multitude of ways. If you're trying to hit different areas in one of those situations of, where people call something soda versus pop or whatever it is, understanding that. Also going back to your content catalog and looking at what are those related posts that you've already created that you can link to. So we actually have a section on it where here are links that if, it feels right when you're incorporating or when you are writing your post that you can incorporate these links, great. But then it goes into, again, that outline structure, which is the title, the headings, so the general flow of your article and what you want to be writing about. And that also allows you to incorporate your keywords into your title, into your headings to make sure that they're, in front of those fancy algorithms that are looking at your site. And then it also, because one of the things before I started doing this that I would always find myself doing is write a post and then it turned into like 14 posts, or it turned into a post that was like essentially a novel. And so what this does is helps me go through that process of saying, okay, these are the key points for this. But then while I'm thinking about that, maybe I'm thinking about the next post that I'm writing. And so then I can go back to my content catalog, and in my section that's like planning or ideas for content, I can pop that over there. And it helps me, feel like I haven't just written a 8,000 word post that I then need to like dissect into something that's smaller and more manageable for someone that isn't me wanting to read this very lengthy post. So it helps me do that ahead of time.
Yes. Okay. So you've sold me. I need to be doing this because I'm sure my sister's not listening to this episode because she's not a petpreneur, but my sister is always like, why? Like, I'm always like, I'm finally finishing this blog post. It's 8,000 words or whatever it is. And she's like, why can't you just write something shorter? I'm like, because I need to cover everything. And you don't have to cover everything in that one blog post. So yeah, I need to be doing these content briefs for myself. I need to be my own boss and kind of give myself a little assignment. So this is a great idea.
It's a rough job being your own boss sometimes. So I get it.
My boss, I like to say that she's tough, but really she's not. She's like, yeah, take a break. Watch Gilmore Girls.
Yeah, that's fine. Go play with the dogs.
So, okay. So I'm loving everything that you are saying here. I want to kind of to switch gears a little bit. Well, maybe it's really not switching gears, but kind of circling back to trends and what people are talking about. And I feel like a lot of people are talking about Google's EAT, which is EEAT, and that stands for experience, expertise, authority, and trust. And I feel like I see this acronym being used a lot, like lately, frequently when I'm looking around at different things and reading different blogs. So it's basically building trust with the people who are reading your blog or visiting your website. And, in talking to bloggers myself or pet business owners, recently I was like, why don't you do a blog post sharing some testimonials that people have given about your product or your service? And people are like, well, isn't that a little bit braggy? Like, I don't want to do a blog post, all of my testimonials. I'm like, no, it's a great way to show people that, other people had a great experience with you. It builds that trust and that authority and shows that you've had other customers.
Yes.
So what, in your opinion, what are some ways that bloggers or petpreneurs can build this EAT and show their experience and authority in their content? And does it help you rank higher in search results, do you think?
Yeah, so there is a lot within EAT for sure. So I'm going to try to hit a couple main points, but reel me back in, Tori, if I start to veer off. I think the biggest thing is that, so EAT was originally just the one E, and then they added the second E to add experience as part of it. And one of the biggest changes with that is that Google is looking for actual stories and firsthand experience of people writing the content. So like if you are a blogger who is writing a product review, they want to see the photos that you actually took when you actually used this real product, and then hearing your real experience with it, not just, a regurgitation of what the product listing is on that brand's website. And one of the other pieces that this really helps too, so in the BlogPaws community, one of the things we hear a lot is that, oh, I don't have like a certificate or degree or letters after my name, and that's okay. If you have that, amazing. That's where that expertise, you're getting the credentials that proves that you went through some kind of schooling, some kind of system to earn what you're at. And there are certain things that is really, really, really important for, right? Like we're not going to go to a surgeon who is not gone to med school. But there are other things that you don't need that as much for. And that's where your experience can shine. And so if you're in that place of, I'm a pet sitter, but I didn't go to school for pet sitting, how do I show that? That's the testimonials, 100%. Real pictures of real pets that you're watching and your stories with them. And if there's ever been a problem that you solved or where you've come and, saved the day or something like that, sharing that. And that is absolutely going to help build the other two things, which is authority and trust. And authority is indicating that you are knowledgeable, you are someone that people should go to learn about this topic. And trust is that when you say those things, people actually believe you and take it to heart. So I like to think of EAT as kind of a progression where if you have expertise, amazing. But experience is where a lot of us are going to really shine. And we communicate that through the writing, the photos, through everything we're putting out on our website.
So it really is important to use your own photos. And I always think like a bad original photo is much better than some stock photo on a white background cutout kind of thing. So I'm always trying, looking through my camera roll. I'm like, oh, I just took a picture of this dog treats like in my kitchen. I'm going to use that instead of pulling the photo from the Amazon listing or something, which you shouldn't really do anyhow. But, I'm going to use my original photo instead.
Yeah. And I would say, different businesses have different rules. If you're a blogger, though, really you should be using as much of your own content, as much of your own photos as you can. In BlogPaws, it's kind of interesting because we're a little unique in that like a lot of our content is around education in this space. And so like having original photos actually becomes a little bit challenging, but every opportunity we have to use an original photo, we jump on it. Like you said, I'd rather have, maybe it wasn't shot in perfect light. Maybe our dog is a blur. But it's something that we took to show that we're actually doing what we're saying we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Okay, final question, Jessica, because we could talk for hours and maybe we will talk for hours when I see you later this fall.
Yes.
But so you're so great at all the technical side of all of this. And it can kind of like make your brain spin a little bit thinking about outsmarting Google. So for the people who feel overwhelmed by the technical side, what kind of advice do you have for them to just get started with SEO or to get started with optimizing their content without being too intimidated? I think you've already provided a lot of great advice, but I thought this would just be a nice way to wrap it up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't want to get too much into optimizing specific content because that is something that will go on for hours and we don't have that time, unfortunately. But the two biggest things I would look at that Google actually provides helpful tools for are Google Search Console, which I mentioned a little bit earlier. And that tool will provide you information on how Google is viewing your site via their search algorithm. So what they're crawling, what they're seeing. So if they are seeing pages that aren't indexed, so if there's an issue there, it'll tell you that. If they are seeing opportunities, and they actually rolled out just, I want to say a few weeks ago, some more specific like tips within their own tool. And so that's one of those things where like if you're trying to maximize your reach on Google and they're giving you free information, please take that information. Please do. So get your site set up there, look through all of the things. And if you're just getting it set up, you're probably going to have some warnings, some errors, some advice, things popping up. My biggest thing with all of that is make sure that you read each item and look at it from like a prioritization view, because some of the things that may be popping up may mean you have to actually redesign your whole site or, rebuild some segment of your site. And that is not a simple, easy undertaking. So while that might be an error, it's something you should factor in for, maybe the next year, maybe 6 months if you're ambitious. Don't feel like you have to get that and clear that error right away. So just keep that in mind when you view that. And then the second piece of it is do a page speed test. So Google has their own page speed insight tool, and it gives you, again, some more tips there. The biggest things that I would recommend looking at if you don't have on your site is caching. And what that does is it essentially saves a version of your web page so that way users aren't having to reload the whole thing every time. and that increases your page speed because you and I, when we go to a site and we're at this point, if it takes more than like a couple seconds to load, we're like, ugh, do I really want this information? And especially because we're all searching on our phones now, like we want stuff right away. So page speed is a really big factor, and that's across not only your homepage but all of your blog pages as well. So Google Search Console, and then check your page speed and optimize via what those recommendations are as much as you can within the current state of your website.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I like that both of those tips are Google, Google has a page speed test, and then the Google Search Console. They're both free to use. And it is Google telling you how to show up better on Google. So you can trust it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the one like little nice cookie that they're giving to us to try, to do better.
Yes, it's a little treat that they broke it in half and they broke it in half again, and then they gave us like a little crumb of that.
Yes. They're like, good job, good work.
Nice job. Well, Jessica, it's been so inspiring talking to you. I personally am like, oh my God, now I have to go create content briefs, and I want to create a content catalog and get into Airtable. So I'm really inspired. And I hope that everyone listening is as well, because you shared so much great advice here. And I know there's an opportunity to hang out with you in person coming up this fall. So where is that? When's that happening? And how can people learn more?
Yeah, so BlogPaws, we are bringing back events. We are having BlogPaws Live, which is this November 15th and 16th of this year, so 2024. And it'll be taking place in Boulder, Colorado. And not only will you get to hang out with me, but you'll also be able to hang out with Tori, and she'll be there. And we are bringing together around 100 pet-focused content creators. So bloggers, we are having some influencers, some vloggers. It'll be a mix. But one of the things I absolutely love about that is everyone has their different specialty. So if you are looking for insight into one of those things that maybe you don't do as much or as well as you want to, you can get insight from the experts. And we are going to have some awesome panels, and it's just going to be an absolutely amazing event.
I'm so excited because the conversations that happen organically in person, you can't really replicate it on a Zoom call or, in your DMs or anything like that. So the chance to be around other people, I know that at BlogPaws, maybe 6 years ago or something in South Carolina, is where I got the idea for this podcast. And here we are today. This is, episode 300 and some. So BlogPaws is very inspirational.
Yes. And if you want to learn more about the event, you can go to blogpaws.live, and that's our full information about it.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Well, I can't wait to see you very, very soon. And thanks so much for being on the show here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Tori.
Some of the best conversations happen after the episode. Send me a note on Instagram at WearWagRepeat, or find even more women petpreneurs to connect with in our private Facebook group called Wear, Wag, Repeat Labs. If you want to dig into more episodes, resources to grow your business, or find a link to something we discussed, it is all right there for you at wearwagrepeat.com. I'll see you back here next Wednesday for a fresh conversation.